I'm going to go ahead and read chapter 34 all in one sitting and then go back and explain parts of it afterwards. Now Dinah, the daughter Leah had borne to Jacob, went out to visit the women of the land. When Shechem, son of Hamor the Hivite, the ruler of that area, saw her, he took her and violated her. His heart was drawn to Dinah, daughter of Jacob, and he loved the girl and spoke tenderly to her. And Shechem said to his father Hamor, "Get me this girl as my wife." When Jacob heard that his daughter Dinah had been defiled, his sons were in the fields with his livestock. So he kept quiet about it until they came home. Then Shechem's father Hamor went out to talk with Jacob. Now Jacob's sons had come in from the fields as soon as they heard what had happened. They were filled with grief and fury because Shechem had done a disgraceful thing in Israel, or against Israel, by lying with Jacob's daughter, a thing that should not be done. But Hamor said to them, "My son Shechem has his heart set on your daughter. Please give her to him as his wife. Intermarry with us. Give us your daughters and take our daughters for yourselves. You can settle among us. The land is open to you. Live in it, trade in it, and acquire property in it." Or move about freely in it. Then Shechem said to Dinah's father and brothers, "Let me find favor in your eyes, and I will give you whatever you ask. Make the price for the bride and the gift I am to bring as great as you like, and I'll pay whatever you ask me. Only give me the girl as my wife." Because their sister Dinah had been defiled, Jacob's sons replied deceitfully as they spoke to Shechem and his father Hamor. They said to them, "We can't do such a thing. We can't give our shelter to a man who is not circumcised. That would be a disgrace to us. We will give our consent to you on one condition only, that you become like us by circumcising all your males. Then we will give you our daughters and take your daughters for ourselves. We'll settle among you and become one people with you. But if you will not agree to be circumcised, we'll take our sister and go." Their proposal seemed good to Hamor and his son Shechem. The young man, who was the most honored of all his father's household, lost no time in doing what they said because he was delighted with Jacob's daughter. So Hamor and his son Shechem went to the gate of their city to speak to their fellow townsmen. "These men are friendly towards us," they said. "Let them live in our land and trade in it. The land has plenty of room for them. We can marry their daughters and they can marry ours. But the men will consent to live with us as one people only on the condition that our males be circumcised as they themselves are. Won't their livestock, their property, and all their other animals become ours? So let us give our consent to them, and they will settle among us." All the men who went out of the city gate agreed with Hamor and his son Shechem, and every male in the city was circumcised. 3 days later, while all of them were still in pain, 2 of Jacob's sons, Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brothers, took their swords and attacked the unsuspecting city, killing every male. They put Hamor and his son Shechem to the sword and took Dinah from Shechem's house and left. The sons of Jacob came upon the dead bodies, so this is the rest of them now, not just those 2, and looted the city where their sister had been defiled, or because their sister had been defiled. They seized their flocks and herds and donkeys and everything else of theirs in the city and out in the fields. They carried off all their wealth and all their women and children, taking as plunder everything in the houses. Then Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, "You have brought trouble on me by making me a stench to the Canaanites and Perizzites, the people living in this land. We are few in number, and if they join forces against me and attack me, I and my household will be destroyed." But they replied, "Should he have treated our sister like a prostitute?" Okay, so this is a disturbing story. Now, the first thing, this is a difficult story, especially for us in our day and time. There's a number of things we need to talk about, even before we even get into some of the details about this passage. There's a few things that we just have to accept about this chapter before we can really get anywhere discussing it. I said in one of my previous videos that it's a fair question to ask whenever you read something in the Bible, the Old or New Testament. It's a fair question to ask yourself, why is this here? Why was this recorded? Of all the material that we could have kept about history or about wisdom or whatever, of all the stuff that could have been written down, why was this stuff chosen to be written down? This is true for this is probably especially true for the history parts of the Bible, because we'd like to know more. This covers a long period of history. The Bible itself, I believe Moses was the first author, writing in the 1400s BC. I think the Bible was finished being written around 100 AD, so about 1500 years it took to write this stuff. The timeline that it covers actually goes back before that, because Moses starts off by writing things that took place hundreds of years even before his own time. So you have 2,000 years of history, even before, or 2,000 years of history starting before the actual written account begins, that you could have covered. And you're not going to be able to cover everything. No book in the world could ever cover everything that happens in 2,000 years. So, from Abraham to Jesus, the Israelite nation existed for about 2,000 years. It's a long time. And so, I think it's completely a fair question to ask, why are certain things recorded and the rest not? Now, again, when we get to the later history books like Kings, they'll even talk about some of the history books that they are keeping at the time. When they become a kingdom, when they become established as a kingdom, they're going to keep history books, and the records that we have will even talk about these history books, and will say, are the other events of this king's reign not written down in these other history books? Well, I guess they were at one time. We don't have those anymore. It'd be nice to have them. It'd be nice to know more about what went on that time, but we don't. So it's completely a fair question to ask why the stuff that we have in the Bible is in the Bible and not anything else that we think might have been included or could have been included. So in this case, why is this story in the Bible? This story is not in the Bible because of anything regarding Dinah. Dinah is not the important character in this story. In fact, the whole reason why Dinah is even mentioned is by name that's just one thing that we have to accept. And that probably is a little difficult for us in our day and time today, because that goes against our own cultural standards today. But Dinah is not the important person in this story. She's probably the least important person, actually. The reason why this story is included in the Bible is because it explains, we'll find out later. It doesn't become apparent just by reading it right now. But the reason why is because it explains why Simeon and Levi, the two sons who are the instigators of the mass murder, get passed over when it comes time to choose which of these 12 sons will get the blessing from Jacob. Skipping all the way ahead now to the end of the book of Genesis, Jacob is on his deathbed and is giving his sons their blessing. He says about Simeon and Levi are brothers. Their swords are weapons of violence. Let me not enter their council. Let me not join their assembly, for they have killed men in their anger, and hamstrung oxen as they pleased. Cursed be their anger so fierce, and their fury so cruel. I will scatter them in Jacob, and disperse them in Israel. So that is the reason why this story of the rape of Dinah, or whatever, is included. It has nothing to do with Dinah herself. Dinah is as unimportant as any character could possibly be in this story. The point of this story is to demonstrate why Simeon and Levi get passed, because they're second and third in the birth order, and then why Simeon and Levi get passed over in terms of the blessing or the birthright, why they don't get their inheritance as firstborn. Now, Reuben is the actual firstborn, so he would be in line to get this stuff by virtue of being born first. And we will find out he also commits a sin that disqualifies him from that honor. And we'll read about that a little bit later. But this encounter here is included in order to explain. The blessing ends up going to Judah, who is number 4, the fourth son of Leah, the first wife of Jacob. So he's the one who ends up actually getting the blessing. So Reuben, Simeon, and Levi all get disqualified for one reason or another. For Simeon and Levi, the reason is explained right here. For Reuben, it'll be explained a little bit later. So that is why this story is in the Bible. Okay, this story is not in the Bible to get us outraged about the treatment of Dinah. I don't even know if we're supposed to be outraged. I don't even know if that's something that I just don't know. Okay, it's like I don't know. I don't know exactly what happened between Shechem and Dinah. I don't really know. I don't even know how old Dinah is here. Okay, it's like I've told before about the incredibly weird timeline of Jacob's life. I don't know how much time has passed since he's come back to this land area, Canaan. I don't know how old the sons are, how old... Dinah was pretty late in the birth order. She may be pretty small. It's like, I don't think she's like 7 or anything like that. Some people say she might have been as young as 7. Okay, I don't know. I don't know if she's that young. I don't know. I really don't. She's not any older than, say, 12 or 13, though. We're talking about a girl that we would consider now a girl. Okay, it's like she's maybe on the cusp of marrying age, but not by much. Okay, not by much. I don't know the exact time. I don't think anybody has worked out the exact age of Dinah in this section, but she's not old. She's not old. She apparently is going to this festival on her own. It says way back in the verse 1, she went out to visit the women of the land. Apparently she's unaccompanied, unchaperoned. Leah is not with her, apparently. So she's old enough at least to leave their camp and go to the city that they're living right next to. So is that, what would that be, 12 maybe, 11? I don't think that'd be a 7-year-old or a 9-year-old, but I don't know. But she's very small. She's not old, okay? I'm not even sure if she's a teenager yet. And she's going out to meet the women of the land. She lives with a bunch of brothers. I'm sure she's tired of their horseplay and their antics. I don't know how many maid servants are around, but she probably doesn't have a whole lot in the way of female companionship, so she wants to go out and meet some, basically. And she somehow catches the eye of Shechem, who is, I guess, wandering around and sees her, so he defiles her somehow. The brothers and Joseph and Jacob are angry about this. But again, and this is just one of those things where there's just a break between the way the Bible views what we would call rape and how we view rape. First of all, the Old Testament has no actual word for rape. They are aware of the concept of a woman being forcibly seized into sex, but there is no actual term for rape, and the cultural view around it is very, 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 very different from what we think of today. To them, and again, this would probably be very annoying to a lot of people today, but this is just how it is. To them, the act of rape, again, they don't even have a word for that act, is actually an offense, not against the girl, but against her father and the male members of her family. Now, that may seem very shocking and outrageous to us, and it probably is. It's like, to these people at this point in time, forcefully seizing a woman and having sex with her against her will just isn't that much of a crime against that woman. Like, that's just not that big of a deal. It's a big deal because you're dishonoring the male members of her family. You're making it harder for her to get married. If she's a virgin, presumably you're going to be doing this to an unmarried woman. The laws that will govern this later on, I think, are all about unmarried. I'm not sure if there's I don't know, honestly. But I don't think we're really talking about a situation where a married woman is being raped by someone who's not her husband. I'm not even sure if there is a law to govern that. I'm not sure, honestly. But we're basically talking about an unmarried woman who's being forced to have sex before she's married. In which case, she would be screwed socially because she wouldn't be able to get married in that case. And she would basically be condemned to a life of destitution, probably prostitution. That's why later on in the law of Moses, the punishment for doing this will be that you actually have to marry this girl, which Shechem is actually volunteering to do here. Okay, and that's, again, we would have a very hard time with that. We would see that as a punishment to the girl having to marry her rapist, but that's, again, that's just, they just thought about that differently. Okay, like that's just, if the Bible were being written today, and if God were coming up with a series of laws and regulations that he wants us to follow today, I believe he probably would have written it differently. Okay, the law of Moses was given to the people who were living in the 1400s BC, and it made sense to people living in the 1400s BC. Okay, if he were giving us a written list of rules to follow today, and a certain section of those rules, those laws, governed the crime of rape, I'm very confident in saying that the language would be very different, and the rules and regulations and penalties of it would be very different. It's just, that's just not the way it is. You know, the law itself was written 3,400 years ago. This incident occurred 200 or 300 years even before that, and so they were just a very different way of looking at it. To them, the punishment for the rapist is to have to marry the girl he rapes, because otherwise there is almost no chance that girl ever will get married and will not have a husband to take care of her and provide for her physical and social needs. So she'd be stuck, once her father's dead, she'd be stuck, left as destitute in poverty. So to take care of that, they forced the guy to marry the woman that he raped. And that's just, that was the solution to their problem. And in this case, Shechem is offering to do this voluntarily. His mistake was in having sex with her first. If he really was that attracted to her, he could have offered Jacob to buy his daughter, and I'm sure he would have gotten it. Like, I don't think Jacob would have said no. We've seen the break happen with the family from, previously up till now. Abraham and Isaac did not want intermarriage. They didn't want to get foreign women for their son. Now, this is a daughter. We haven't really had any precedent established for what they wanted to do if they had daughters. I don't think they would have minded. I don't think they would have bothered. They would if Abraham and Isaac had daughters, I don't think they would have minded marrying them off to the people. I don't think they would have, but I don't know. They didn't apparently have daughters, so we don't know what they would have done. If Shechem, the prince of Shechem, had come to Jacob first and asked to buy his daughter, to marry his daughter, and given him whatever he asked for her, I think Jacob probably would have said yes. I don't think Jacob would have said no. At any rate, that didn't happen. He took the girl first and had sex with her, and then asked to buy her in marriage. And so he got it wrong. Now, they are upset by this. The brothers do seem to be upset by this. They take revenge for it. I'm not clear on whether they're upset because of their sister's sake or upset because of their sake. Because remember, in their culture, they didn't have a word for rape. What we would call rape, that concept of seizing a woman and having sex with her against her will, was not a crime against her. It was a crime against her father and her male family members. So I don't know if these teenage boys, which were probably teenagers at this time, are angry because of their sister's sake, or they're angry because they feel that they've been dishonored and disgraced, or their father. I'm just not sure. Okay. Again, their views towards this thing would be very, very, very different from what we would look at today. We think of the story as the Rape of Dinah, but I'm quite confident that is not how Moses saw this story. Moses is including this because he wants to tell us why Simeon and Levi did not get the blessing from Jacob. They got passed over in getting the blessing from Jacob, and this is the story that explains that. Dinah is the least important person in this story. She is, except for the very beginning when she goes out, she is not the subject of any of the verbs. Things are always being done to her. She doesn't say a thing. We never hear a word from her at any point anywhere in the scriptures, actually, and we never hear from her again. So it's like there cannot be any less concern about Dinah herself here. Like Moses, the last person that Moses is interested in talking about here is Dinah. What he wants to tell us is why Simeon and Levi don't get the blessing. And we can be disgruntled by that. We can be uncomfortable with that. That's just how it is. I mean, that is just one of those things that it is what it is. It may not be what we would like it to be, but that is just how it is. And in the end, it comes up. Moses isn't going to do a thing about it anymore. Okay, Moses is long dead. If you're upset with Moses for writing so casually about what you view as the rape of a teenager, possibly pre-teenage girl, I mean, it's like, well, Moses is dead. Okay, Moses is long past the point of caring, if you care about how sensitive he is about this issue. Okay, that's just one of those things where you're just going to have to either accept it or whatever. You can be disgruntled by it, be uncomfortable with it, but I mean, it is what it is. So they're now a marked clan. They are not. They were trying to settle. He actually bought a field. Jacob was actually trying to settle here somewhat. Up until now, they've been total strangers and foreigners in this territory. Abraham, Isaac. Jacob actually bought this field and is trying to kind of settle down somewhat. But now they have to go because they're going to be marked for vengeance by everybody around them. Then God said to Jacob, "Go up to Bethel and settle there." That's where he originally had that dream of the staircase and made his vow. And God wants him to go back there, like Jacob himself said he would. Go up to Bethel and settle there, and build an altar there to God, who appeared to you when you were fleeing from your brother Esau. Remember that? That's been taken care of, Jacob. Now you got to honor your vow and go back to that spot like you said you were going to. So Jacob said to his household and to all who were with him, "Get rid of the foreign gods you have with you, and purify yourselves and change your clothes." So he still had those foreign gods in his household. We read about Rachel taking them out of Laban's household and hiding them when Laban searched for them. We didn't read about them after that. Apparently they kept them. I don't know at what point Jacob became aware of their presence. Obviously he did, clearly at some point become aware of their presence. But whatever he did, he didn't get rid of them. He kept them. He allowed them to stay. And now he's finally getting rid of them. Now he's finally scrubbing himself clean of them. But not until now. Interesting. And purify yourselves and change your clothes. That's part of the ceremonial washing process. This is another one of those things that's interesting because, again, this book is being written by someone who knows the law. It's being written by Moses, the lawgiver himself. So he's writing this from the perspective of someone who knows the law. Okay? So he knows about the purification process. He knows about the whole changing your clothes and, ceremonially washing yourself clean and purifying yourself. I don't know how Jacob knows this. Okay, where did Jacob learn this? I don't think he learned it from Laban. I don't know if he learned it from Isaac back when he lived with Isaac for the first 70 plus years of his life. I don't know. Okay, we don't read anywhere about how Jacob knows about the purification process, which wasn't even given or written down at least until the days of Moses a couple hundred years later. This is just one of those weird things where you have to realize that this is being written by someone who knows this stuff, and he is telling it to people who also know this stuff. He's writing this down and reading it out loud in front of people, or in the hearing of people who also know this stuff. But he's writing about people who lived before this stuff was established and codified. And he's not even attempting to explain how these people from the past knew about any of this. He's not even making one whit of an effort to explain that. So how exactly Jacob knew to do this, I don't know. He just did somehow. Or Moses is taking for granted that he did. Then come, let us go up to Bethel, where I will build an altar to God, who answered me in the day of my distress, and who has been with me wherever I have gone. So they gave Jacob all the foreign gods they had, and the rings in their ears. And Jacob buried them under the oak at Shechem, which, by the way, Shechem is now a dead city. I guess, they killed all the men and took all the women. So I guess there's nothing left there but empty buildings. Or dead bodies. I'm assuming they probably didn't bury the men. Then they set out, and the terror of God fell upon the towns all around them, so that no one pursued them. So these people wanted to pursue them. Jacob said that they were going to be pursued. And I guess God knew they were going to be pursued, obviously, so he set his terror upon them so they wouldn't be pursued. Jacob and all the people with him came to. And by the way, Jacob, they had gods in their household, and Jacob was allowing them to have gods in their household. It isn't until now that he finally draws the line and says, "Get rid of them." Jacob and all the people with him came to Luz, that is Bethel, in the land of Canaan. There he built an altar, and he called the place El Bethel, because that means the God of Bethel. El means God, because it was there that God revealed himself to him when he was fleeing from his brother. Whenever you see that L in there, you know that there's the word God is behind that somehow. And that was just a word, okay? Like our word God is just a word. We also can use it as a name, but it's a word, and that's the case also with their old word El.